Good morning to all. Welcome to my live show on six sins. These six sins are actually six dacoits which reside in our body. And according to Sanatan Dharma, these are um, anger, lust, arrogance, delusion, jealousy, and greed. So, this this live presentation is going to discuss whether Muhammad possessed these six sins or not, or was he a prophet really, or a messenger of God? Any person who is more virtuous, who has gained victory over these six vices, can call himself really virtuous, somebody who has gained victory over these vices, internal vices. And anybody who has not cannot really call himself a prophet or a messenger of God. So let us begin without delay. I would like to share with you my presentation. So the six sins of Muhammad, whether we are going to discover whether Muhammad possessed these six sins or not. So the following shloka is taken from Vairagya Dindima and it explains the Shadaripu. The Shadaripu is uh, this word can be broken down into Shad meaning six and Ripu meaning enemies. So there are six enemies. Kamaha krodhascha lobhascha dehe tishtanti taskaraha jnana ratna paharaya tasmat jagrat jagrat. It means uh, that it lists all these. Let's see the meaning. Adi Shankaracharya has given the meaning that desire, anger, greed, attachment, pride, jealousy, and these are the dacoits that are residing within your own body. They are not outside. They are within you. They are residing as fifth column enemies within you. And why are they there? The intention is to loot you of the Jnana Ratan, means knowledge, jewel of knowledge, to rob you of the precious gem of spiritual wisdom or Atmagyan, to loot you or deprive you of the precious gem of self awareness and make you forget yourself and weep and wail and be in ignorance. In order to deprive you of this jewel of Atmagyan, they are there. Therefore, O man, O sadhak, meaning a seeker, beware, beware. In this way, from the submerged level of the chit or the deep within, various samskaras and vasana are brought into activity. Various virtues. Sanskara means virtues and vasana means lust. So let's see. The Upanishads say that the mind alone is the cause of bondage and the liberation, which is called moksha, and in humans. So it's the mind. When it is attached to sense objects, the mind brings bondage. When detached from object, it brings freedom. So the six sins are lust or desire, called kam, anger, krodh, greed, lobh, delusion, moh, arrogance or pride, mad, jealousy or envy, matsarya. Now let's explore each one of them and see if Muhammad possessed these vices. So the first one is lust, that Muhammad was a pedophile. And I can provide like 21 proofs that Aisha was 6 years old when she got married to Muhammad. Because many Muslim apologetics they start saying that that Aisha was 13 years old, that she was 18 years old, and so on. And they try to give some kind of mathematical calculations. But here I have chosen the evidence where Aisha is herself saying that the Prophet married her when she was 6 years old and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old, and then she remained with him for 9 years. So when Muhammad died, Aisha was 18 years old. This evidence is from Sahih Bukhari, volume 7, chapter 62, and verse 64. So When Muhammad married a 6-year-old girl, she was his friend's daughter. When you see a friend, their children should be like your own children. And Abu Bakr was the first man to join Muhammad, and a slave Bilal. So those were the early two companions of Muhammad. And since Muhammad had done so much for, Abu Bakr had done so much for Muhammad, that when Muhammad asked his daughter's hand in marriage, he was shocked because she was just a child. So he tried to say that you are my brother, but Muhammad argued and said that that he was his brother in religion, but not actually. So he could can marry his daughter. Many apologetics are so shameful that they call that 6 year old is actually puberty. And clearly, we know that 6 year old are kids, they have no knowledge about anything. And Muhammad used to put his tongue inside uh, these kids, and that evidence is also there. But, anyways, I will just mention you that he has married a little girl, his friend's daughter, and that's pedophilia. Let's see more. Ibn Ishaq Sohaili 2.79 page 311. Ibn Ishaq records that the apostle saw Fadl, that was the name of the baby, Fadl, when she was a baby crawling before him and said, if she grows up and I'm still alive, I will marry her. Imagine seeing a crawling baby, what kind of thoughts this man of God is having. Then, next proof, Muhammad saw Habiba, the daughter of Abbas, when she was Fatim, which is called the age of nursing, and he said, if she grows up and I am still alive, I will marry her. So she was a nursing baby, and Muhammad, a 61-year-old Muhammad, at that time Muhammad was 61 years old, and he is having that kind of thoughts of lust with the little baby. Now, let's see, he did not restrict himself to little girls, but little boys as well. His own grandsons, Al Hassan and Al Hussein, were young, and when they used to cry because they were thirsty, Muhammad gave them his tongue to suck. So, what would you call this? An oral sex. His tongue to suck, and thereafter they stopped crying. Ash-Shifa by Qadi Iyad, transmitted by Aisha Abdur Rahman Bewley, 1991, page 194. So, in so many places, Muhammad has been using water to do wudu and different kind of things. Why wouldn't they supply water to the little thirsty children? Why would Muhammad have to put his tongue inside their mouth? That's just an excuse, um, because in several places water has been mentioned. So they had water. Another example. One day Abu Huraira accompanies Muhammad to the mosque. Once there, Muhammad said, where is the little one? Call the little one to me. Hassan came running and jumped into his lap. Then he put his hand in his beard. Then Muhammad opened his mouth and put his tongue in his mouth. Then he said, O Allah, I love him, so love him and the one who loves him. This is a strategy in entire Quran. There is nothing peaceful. There are 109 verses of violence, but they have written peace be upon him in brackets after Muhammad's name, and thus introduced the word peace. And here also they have just put in love, 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 but there is nothing called love. This is just sickening pedophilia. And I'm really sh- like, it's very unfortunate to see that people who are educated Muslims are supporting, and they are kind of defending pedophilia, and that's is shocking. How can an educated person try and support pedophiles? Another thing, another evidence that Muhammad was an adulterer. The evidence is given from Ibn Sa'd Tabaqat, volume 8 and page 195. Ibn Sa'd writes, Abu Bakr has narrated that Muhammad had sexual intercourse with. Actually, I'll narrate you instead of reading it. That Muhammad's wife Hafsa had a maid which had been given to her, and she was a beautiful woman called Maria. And one day, Muhammad told Hafsa that since he had space problems, so he wanted to have sex in in Hafsa's bed. So he told Hafsa that your father has called you. So Hafsa left, and in her absence, he had sex with Maria in Hafsa's bed. And so Hafsa, when she went to her father's home, she discovered that she had not been called. So came hastened. She hastened backwards to her home, and she found them red-handed, having sex in her own bed, and she was furious. And then Muhammad uh, promised her that he would not do it again, but he did it again. And then giving a verse from Allah that that he can have any woman he likes, and that Allah has given him this permission. So Allah has become like a pimp, and Muhammad is having adultery with another woman, and he takes an oath, and then he breaks his oath. So he could not even keep his promises. So Muhammad really had that vice called lust. Now let's check anger. We'll find out that when you're angry, Muhammad was a very cruel and angry man, and that we can see from Bukhari, volume 4, 52 book, and number 261. And this has been narrated by Anas. He was a companion of Muhammad, and he said that there were like eight men from this tribe, an Arabic tribe, who came to Muhammad, and um, they were a little bit sick, so Muhammad told them to drink the camel milk and camel urine, and when they went and drank, they became okay. So then Muhammad heard that they had killed the camel attendant and then uh, fled with his camels. So uh, actually, Muhammad always used to say an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but he actually did not follow that. He did an eye for a body. Like, he took too much revenge, and he was sadistic and cruel. So he asked his men to chase those uh, eight men who had fled with the camels, and instead of getting the camels back, and maybe he could have killed them, but what they did was they cut the hands and feet of these eight men, and they passed heated nails on the eyes of these people and left them in a rocky land to die slowly. And then Anas further narrates that when they asked for water, uh, they were not given any, and they died slowly. So they died a cruel death. Muhammad was so angry, like, when I see these movies or documentaries on television, I find that when people are being really, really killed in a very bad way, it's like a personal attack. And Muhammad was extremely angry and extremely cruel to have tortured these people for theft, whereas he himself used to rob many people. So he never cut his own hands and passed nails on his own eyes. What kind of man he is? So here we are just discussing the vices. So Muhammad surely had anger as one of his big vices. And another example is that comes from Sahih Muslim, book 4 and verse number 2127. One day, this Aisha was going to bed, and she noticed that Muhammad tried to pretend to, he feigned his sleep, and then he got up and went somewhere. So she also got up and went. And then it was a long verse, so I have just taken from when she returned. When she saw Muhammad returning, she also returned, and when he hastened his steps, she also hastened her steps, and when he ran, she too ran, but she preceded him, and she ran faster, and she got home before him. And then she lay down in the bed, and then when Muhammad entered, he said, "Why, Aisha, that you are out of breath?" And she said, "Nothing." He said, "Tell me, or the subtle and the aware one would inform me." And then she told him that you can take my father and my mother be ransom for you. And then she told him the whole story. And he said, was it the darkness of your shadow that I saw in front of me? Because Muhammad saw a shadow. And so when she confirmed, yes, he struck her on the chest, and which caused her pain. And this Aisha is herself narrating that he struck me on the chest, which caused me pain. That means Muhammad was, you can call it domestic violence. Excuse me. So Muhammad was a violent man, and this is another example of his violence. And it's important because this is the child bride, and he has punched her in the chest. So you can see that he did not spare even kid brides. Next vice is greed, and Muhammad is a very greedy man. We will see from this example. This is from Sirat Rasulullah, page number 515, Ibn Ishaq, which is the biography of Muhammad. Actually, many Muslims say that they have got this from the Sanatan Dharma. In Sanatan Dharma, whenever somebody attacked, only the warriors used to like fight them, whereas the farmers used to keep doing their cultivation nearby. And when Muslims heard these things, they started saying that, oh, Muhammad was only defending himself, but actually Muhammad himself conducted raids. Muhammad conducted 74 raids, and his and he was only using the method of terrorism and not like a warrior. He would kill sleeping people when they were least prepared, where they didn't have any arms. They were killing innocent, defenseless people because he wanted to loot their property. So here is one such raid of Khyber in which Muhammad raided this fortress town and killed its unarmed Jewish inhabitants as they fled for safety. Among the captured was the youthful Kinana. So a young boy has been captured called Kinana, who was also the treasurer of Banu Nadir. And so Muhammad asked him, "Where is the treasure?" But he did not divulge. So a Jew was captured and brought, and the Jew narrated to Muhammad that he had seen Kinana going to a certain ruin every morning early. So when Muhammad asked Kinana, "Do you know that if we find you have it, I shall kill you?" He said, "Yes." So Muhammad gave orders that the ruin was to be excavated and some of the treasure was found. So even though Muhammad found some of the treasure, he was so greedy that he asked for the rest of the treasure because he felt that there is going to be more treasure. There was, according to him, only a little treasure has been found and there should be more. So he speculated about this larger fortune and he asked the remainder from this Kinana, who refused to produce it. So Muhammad asked Al Zubair al Awam to torture him until they get what until they can extract what he has. So you can imagine that torture and greed are mixed here. It's a mixed emotion of torture and greed that Muhammad had, and just for a little bit of money. And so Muhammad had not conquered this vice. For a little bit of money, he tortured him. He kindled a fire with flint and steel on his chest until he was nearly dead. And when he was nearly dead, he was brought to Muhammad, and Muhammad asked Muhammad bin Maslama, who struck off his head in revenge for his brother Mahmud. So you can see that Muhammad is extremely greedy here. He wanted to get the fortune at no matter what the cost, and for that he was prepared to torture a man to death. So this is the vice he has not conquered. How can he be an apostle or a messenger of God? Next, see delusion. Delusion is more, or Muhammad was very attached. When you think like a yogi or you think like a bhogi, meaning one who bhogi is one who consumes. So when you think of the world and you're very attached to it, when you're dying, you think, okay, when I die, you think about heaven, you think about God. But Muhammad didn't have those feelings. He had ordered his his Muslim companions, his gang, that they were not to speak to his wives, that his wife should have a veil for when they come to his house. They should not stay longer period, because according to psychology, what you are, you see other people likewise. So Muhammad always felt that other people were looking at his wives, they were staring at his wife. So he asked his wife, and all his wives were teenagers. I have their names. He had 14 wives, and they were all teenagers except for two who were kids, and one Soda who was still half his age. So imagine all these little teenage girls are being in Wales, and they are still held captive inside the house. They cannot talk with another person, and all these people who visit Muhammad felt that they could look at his beautiful wife. So he told them to speak only with the barrier of the curtain, and he also said that they could not marry anybody after the wives could not marry anyone after the death of Muhammad. So it's the evidence is Quran 33:53, 33 chapter and 53 verse. He says, "O believers, do not enter the homes of the Prophet without permission, and if invited for a meal, do not come too early and linger until the meal is ready. But if you are invited, then enter on time. Once you have eaten, then go on your way and do not stay for casual talk." Such behavior is truly annoying to the Prophet, yet he is too shy to ask you to leave. But Allah is never shy of the truth, and when you believers ask his wives for something, ask them from behind a barrier. This is purer for your hearts and theirs. And it is not right for you to annoy the Messenger of Allah, nor now look, nor ever marry his wives after him. This would certainly be a major offense in the sight of Allah. So the Muslims, I have heard on Quora and other places, that they give an apologetic answer that these wives could not marry anyone because Prophet is their husband, and that's a very big opportunity to become a wife of a Prophet. And if they go to heaven, they will still remain wives of Prophet. And while if they marry somebody else, then no. So I have this question that, first of all, on this earth, poor kid bride Aisha, she was 18 years old when Muhammad died. Now she was molested since the age of 6. She did not have any youth. She was always held captive. The old man molested her and raped her and held her captive. And now, when she's 18 years old, and those times people used to live for 120 years. We have records of many Jews who have reached the age of 120. Let's say if she were having an age of 100, not 120. For from 18 years to 100 years, she must have led a very, very lonely life. She could not marry again. And now let's talk about paradise. The paradise offers 72 virgins to a Muslim man, but what about a Muslim woman? A Muslim woman will get her own husband. So there is another case of Rifa, a woman who was badly beaten by by her husband Abdul Rahman. So she is going to get the same husband in paradise. So it is hell for her here and hell for her in paradise. So that's why these women are why are the women getting only their own husbands and not new people, whereas the men are getting 72 new virgins. So why is that? So this shows that Muhammad was unjust and cruel, or whatever spirit he was talking to. Let's assume what he says about Allah, that this Gabriel or Allah, whoever came to him and was saying these, uh, passing on this information, is a very cruel and unjust person who is going to provide new 72 new virgins to Muslims, out of which, some will be new, but women will get their own husbands. So why is that? And why should Aisha remain lonely for so many years in her life on this earth? So these are the questions. So surely Muhammad, who was not thinking about heaven and about God and about his life after death, he was more jealous and worried about somebody marrying his kid bride Aisha. So he was attached to this world. He has not overcome this vice. So we see that I put a checkpoint that yes, Muhammad was very attached. Now let's come to arrogance or pride. And Muhammad was very arrogant man. It is evident from many places, but I have chosen to pick only one. Sahih Bukhari 77 and book number 3 and hadith number 19, narrated Mahmud bin Rabia. So Mahmud was a man who is narrating this, and he's saying that when he was a boy of 5, I remember the Prophet Muhammad took water from a bucket used for getting water out of a well, and with his mouth and threw it on my face. So this little boy of 5, he remembers that Muhammad used to gargle and throw the and spit out the water on the face of the 5-year-old boy. What would you call this? Extremely gross and extremely arrogant. Why would a man, even a normal person, would not that do that to a child? Lest somebody who calls himself an apostle or a messenger of God do this outrageous thing and spit water on a 5-year-old boy's face? I do not have to say anything further. There are many instances of his arrogance. This is one of them. There's another one in which Aisha brings the nice curtains and with animal prints on it, and Muhammad came and he tore those curtains. So you can imagine that he was an angry and vicious man and extremely arrogant. Now let's see the last one, jealousy. Muhammad was a very jealous man. Comes from Sunan Abu Dawud, 34th chapter and 88th verse, and narrated Aisha Ummul Moimin, a Mukannat. Actually, there are five kinds of I don't know how to pronounce this eunuch, like the transgenders who used to among the 5 transgenders. Mukannat is the one who actually acts like a female. He is a male who doesn't get erect and who is female type. He is called a Mukannat. And Muhammad was so jealous that he not only ordered his wives to do veil from all other men, and that no other men could speak to his wife directly without the barrier, and only when it was very, very essential. He even was jealous of a transgender talking to Aisha or the Prophet. One time, it just narrates that there was this Mukannat who used to come and visit Prophet's Muhammad's wives, and he used to just gossip around and chat with them. And on one such occasion, he came to the Prophet's wives, and he was narrating about some woman who used to come forward with 4 folds of skin in her stomach, and while she used to go backwards, had 8 folds of skin. And as Muhammad entered, he heard these words, and then he thought that he became jealous, and he told his wives not to entertain this Mukannat and to do veil or veil from him. So let's read this. A Mukannat used to enter upon the wives of Prophet. They counted him among those who were free of physical needs. One day Prophet entered upon us when he was with one of his wives and was describing the qualities of a woman, saying, when she comes forward with 4 folds in her stomach, and when she goes backward with 8 folds in her stomach. The Prophet said, do I not see that this man knows what here lies? Then they, the wives, observed veil from him. So he was a very jealous man, and he asked all his wives to do veil from this transgender man. So that was the end of my presentation, and I just would like to say that we see that all these 6 vices which are present in all of us, and Sanatan Dharma asks you to get victory over these vices, which are the internal 6 dacoits, which rob us of our self awareness and our self realization and our path to God. To have victory over these lust and greed and malice, like greed, arrogance, and delusion, and jealousy, and anger. And Muhammad had each of these six vices. He could not have victory over these vices, so we cannot call him a messenger of God or a prophet, because he could not even win over these normal vices which are present in a normal person. And in fact, I find normal people much more virtuous than Muhammad. So, if anybody has any questions, you can ask me. Um, Otherwise, I have proved you. I have written an article about 33 points about Muhammad's immoral deeds, but and 33 categories. They are not 33 just evidence. Under each category, I can give three, four examples. But over here, I just wanted to take this from the Sanatan Dharma uh, angle and say and just talk about the Shad Ripu, which is the six enemies within us. And Muhammad had not gained any victory over these six basic enemies in a human being, six sins. So that's that's the end of this. And good morning.